Hey guys, so we're here back again with another edition of Throwback Thursdays, and what I have for you today is the McFarlane Toys Spawn Series 10, Manga Spawn Series 2, Cyber Violator. Now before we get into the meat and taters of this review, since I no longer have the packaging for this figure, let us first take a look-see at his accessories. And he doesn't come with jack shit. Okay. So with all that being said, before I get too far ahead of myself, let's recap a little bit, because it's been a while since I've looked at good old Violator here on this channel. So, those of you who may recall, the Violator has not had the best reputation here on Overlord Productions. I mean, let's face it, for a while, his figures were not all that in a bag of chips. It wasn't until around the time this guy came out and the movie Violator came out that we finally started getting Violator figures that felt a little bit more substantial. Not from a sculpt and paint standpoint, because you could argue Violator 2 was actually really solid in that regard, but as far as being an overall solid figure through and through, it wasn't until around this time that that really started to become the norm. That said, the regular manga Violator, not that great. It's kind of basic for my liking. But this one, on the other hand, really, really kick-ass. And then, of course, there's Violator 3 and the Violator Mega Fig from the Spawn Universe line, which are, of course, gangbusters. So, with that being said, before I get too far ahead of myself again, I know I'm contradicting myself quite a bit here, I gotta give a shout out to Hamburg Watchman Toys over on Instagram for hooking this guy up. He sent him to me quite a few years ago. I would normally leave a link in the description below to his Instagram, but I'm not 100% sure if he's still on Instagram. So if you see him around, let him know Overlord sent ya, and be nice as always. So, with that being said, taking a closer look at the Cyber Violator here. He is not the best as far as hips go. Very loose. I think that's just how this figure is. I don't think any of these have tight hips. So that's just something to note. But he looks freaking awesome. I gotta give him that. Covered in all kinds of sharp pointy things that are perfect for impaling your enemies, which I have several. And these blades actually all rotate for the most part. The ones on his head move here. I can get them in frame. Ones on his head move around. Ones on the side of his head move around a little bit. They do get a little stuck after a while, so be weary of that. Then this big, crazy scythe blade contraption on his back. This actually does rotate a little bit. Now, I had to put a little bit of heat on this piece to get it to snap in all the way, but it is in there all the way now. And as far as the rest of his articulation goes, his head can rotate here. For better or for worse. I mean, it doesn't rotate a ton, but it does. His jaw will open and close, as a Violator should. His shoulders go out to the side pretty far. You move this out of the way, they can go up even further than that. I mean, look at that. He's got better range than some Marvel Legends. Go back down, they rotate forward and back, and the arms are pretty loose too on the forward and back. They're not the tightest things either. Say maybe if you got some clear elastics to put up in here, you might be able to do something with that, but I wouldn't advise it. It'd be a little tricky to get them around the legs, especially. He does have a single joint and the elbow. It can give you about that much. A little over 90, so that's not bad. No bicep swivel. I thought he had one, but I don't think he does. So we're going to just bypass that. I don't believe there's any kind of cut there. Yeah, there's nothing in there. He does have a wrist swivel and a hinge that is appropriate for his hands, the way they're sculpted. He's got these long claws, almost as long as the ones I had yesterday. The past few days, actually. I clipped those. I was stabbing myself. And then one thing that's cool, actually, he's got this little rotating thing on here. really sure which way this is supposed to go. But I imagine that way he could stab someone with his elbow. Which is mildly amusing. Because why wouldn't you do that? You know? Someone's just minding their own business, you stab them with your elbow. Why the hell not? Now that said, you can pop this piece off. Now I don't know if this is intentional, but it came unglued on mine, so I might just have my dad glue it back on. But you can see all this detail in here. This techno-organic, cybernetic goodness beneath the metal rib sculpt, so that is cool. That said, it is a fairly loose-fitting piece, so again, I might have my dad glue that in place. And as far as the hips go, they do move all around. I mean, there's nothing to the imagination there. They don't move in and out, unfortunately. They are pretty much just stuck in this swivel. Very loose, though. I wish these were a little tighter. He does have a single joint at the knee, which can bend pretty far. Then he does have a hinge in the foot, which does work pretty well. And getting this guy standing up at his maximum height, you can see just how tall he is. He is a very tall figure that will require some leaning. It's a little tricky to get him to balance, but it can be done. There. You can see just how much taller he is, standing upright like that. So that's not the way I display him. Unfortunately, I do not have the space to display him at this height, but it would be cool. I do plan on moving my Spawn collection around some, and maybe getting this guy displayed at his full height, but we'll see about that. Gotta have the space to do that. And these Spawn figures take up a crap ton of real estate. If you guys aren't familiar with the Spawn game, then, well, lucky you. You don't have to deal with those kinds of problems. This guy is awesome. He looks awesome, and I can't thank Hamburg Toys enough for hooking me up with this guy for free, pretty much. Again, I'm not sure if he's still around or not, but it is what it is, I suppose. Not everyone sticks around. You know, there's a lot of bullshit and drama in the toy community, so, you know, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, without him, I wouldn't be able to bring you guys this review. So, with that being said, how could you go wrong with a Violator mixed with the Terminator, right? I like the yellow in the eyes. I think there might be a little bit of paint chip on one of my eyes, but I don't really notice it anymore. I noticed it when I first got it, but I don't think there's really anything going on there. I have to look a little closer later and maybe touch it up with a marker or something, but looks cool nonetheless. This is one of the best Violator figures ever, and I hope Todd can give us a mega fig of this, because we did get a manga Spawn. It'd be really nice to get a mega figure of this. This would be really awesome. Or, you know, just a skinny Violator in general. So, with that being said, let's now move on and take a look at some size comparisons. First up, here is Cyber Violator next to his Spawn Series 1 counterpart, Violator 1, not to be confused with the variant of Violator 2, which I do believe was called Cyber Violator. That said, while that figure did have some cybernetic elements to it, it wasn't a full-blown, you know, Terminator-esque version of the Violator like this one, which, as far as a concept goes, and really an awesome action figure goes, this is the superior Cyber Violator in my personal opinion. That said, if anything, this comparison shows how much McFarlane Toys evolved as far as sculpt and paint goes around this time, which was, I believe, 96 or 97, which was around the same time yours truly was born. That said, I don't completely hate Violator 1 here, but I do wish he was an actual action figure and not a bendy. I think that's really my main gripe with him. Other than that, he was okay at the time. Not perfect, but not bad either. And last, but certainly not least, we have our two regulars, the Mythic Legion's Brother Mandibulus, McFarlane Spawn, who's not towering over everyone today because just look at the size of this glorious beast right here. So with that being said, time to wrap things up, some final thoughts. Overall, and out of all the figures I've taken a look at from the first 10 waves of the vintage Spawn line from McFarlane Toys, this guy right here is by far one of my absolute favorites. Granted, he's not perfect. He is loose in places, and you guys know where I stand on that. But at the end of the day, it is an older figure and not one that came out this past year. So I'm gonna be a little bit more lenient towards this guy as far as that goes. That, and to be quite honest with you, this guy looks more awesome than a lot of the figures that we've gotten throughout this past year. So he's got a little bit of bonus points going for him in that regard. But with all that being said, if you are not really into the manga Spawn aesthetic, this guy doesn't go too deep into that. It just looks like a cool Terminator-esque version of the Violator. And I think if you want to have a really awesome vintage Spawn collection, this is by far one of the pieces you need to pick up. He is, bar none, one of the best in my opinion. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's edition of Throwback Thursdays. If you are so inclined, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know whenever I upload more reviews like this one. If you haven't already, please hit me up on Instagram at Overlord Productions. But as always, keep the comments civil, because the world sucks enough as it is, especially when McFarlane Toys didn't show a whole hell of a lot for Spawn during that summer showcase thing 2 weeks ago. I mean, I'm not asking for a Cyber Violator Mega Fig right away, but I want one eventually, especially with that new manga Spawn coming out. And with that being said, till next time, I'll catch you guys later.